I'm Lainey Kieschnick with iCEV. Thank you for joining us for the LPSCS panel, and we are excited to have Alan Lyles. I probably said that wrong. I'm sorry, Alan. Robert Stalky and Jessica Johnson with us today. If each of you, starting with Alan, can kind of introduce yourself and what school you are with.
Okay, my name is Alan Lyles. I'm with the Corinth High School. Just a few minutes background. I had a 28-year law enforcement career with the Mississippi State Troopers, and then I've did 7 months with the corrections, Alcorn County Regional Corrections Facility, and then got into teaching.
My name is Robert Stalky. I teach at Shadow Ridge High School in Las Vegas, Nevada. I teach forensic science, which is at our school a 4-year program where we teach level 1, level 2, and level 3. I currently have 180 forensic science 1 students, 60 forensic science 2 students, and 50 forensic science 3 students. That's usually how it kind of breaks down. I'm a career teacher, so I've been teaching for 12 years, 9 of which have been in this content of forensic science.
Hi, my name is Jessica Johnson, and I teach career technical education for Arkansas in teaching criminal justice program of study. And I teach 5 different school districts. I'm employed through Warren School District, but I teach 5 area because we're rural in South Arkansas. My students range from 10th to 12th grade, and right now I have 140 students, but that's estimating with all the changes. I think my numbers will go even up more than that. But I'm a digital instructor. I teach digitally, and it's kind of a hybrid. I teach digital and face-to-face instruction. I travel around to all the different schools in my police car and teach them how to do traffic stops and all that fun stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being part of this panel. Let's just kick it off. Jessica, if you want to start off with, what does LCPS look like in your classroom? And it sounds like you have a variety of different classrooms. So you want to answer that, and then Robert and Alan, if you want to add to that as well.
Okay, in my classroom, it looks very hybrid. Like I said, it is a mix of iCEV. I use that. It has been my saving grace when it comes to everything moving smoother, because before iCEV, I had to create all my own curriculum, and it was insane. My background is corrections. I was a correctional officer at Cummins Unit in Arkansas. And then other than that, I've got my bachelor's and my political science degree. And so my students, I give them a good balance of the hands-on from my field, but I've also had to transition, learn a lot of policing. So I teach law enforcement courses. I teach intro to criminal justice, and then we swap every other year with either corrections or like last year I taught corrections. This next year I'm teaching crime scene investigations. So other schools in our area where they teach criminal law, I just make sure criminal law is weaved in with my instruction when in intro to criminal justice. So if you look at it on a tier, it's kind of like intro to criminal justice is their like intro. It's the more boring class, but iCEV has helped make it fun. And then my other classes are way more hands-on, but that's my carrot. I dangle, if you complete these assignments digitally on iCEV, then we'll transition into that hands-on activity. So I use it, that's my go-to for curriculum. It helps so much. Educators call it the LMS, but it's your management system for all the grades, and that has helped so much. I use the printable assignments on iCEV to help my students get that depth of knowledge. And I use, my 3 main things I use are iCEV, and for communication purposes, I use Zoom. And then for communication digitally and to like assign their assignments, I use Google Classroom. And I only use Google Classroom just because it's free. And the kids already are, used to using it.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. Robert, if you want to give us kind of what it looks like with your forensic science.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I do something similar to Jessica does, where I use the hybrid model, where the students will use iCEV for the in-depth knowledge stuff, and I try to get that done on kind of their time, and then use it as the carrot and say, when you finish this, here's our activity. Because when they come into the classroom, that's what I want to spend our time doing. And I use it kind of like a weeding out process, because the forensic science program, it's kind of student run. I have my level 3 students create crime scenes at the end of the year for my level 1s to process, because forensic science 1's about the crime scene investigation part. Level 2 is about all the lab stuff. And so it all builds on itself. Level 3s build the crime scenes, level 1s process the crime scenes, and then they take that evidence and request the lab to do analysis on it, which are my level 3s. And it's almost like a team that I try to build in this program. And iCEV has become something in the classroom where it allows them to get that depth of knowledge, and it allows me more time instead of grading and having to make up all this online digital learning stuff. It allows me to spend that time creating a environment in the classroom where they have hands-on activities.
Great, thanks, Robert. Alan, if you want to answer this as well, and I also want you to add, you said you were in the industry for over 20 years. How do you add some of that industry experience to your class as well?
Okay, and I use kind of the same thing with Jessica. When I got thrown into the teaching, I had to build my own curriculum. I was hired actually a week after school started, the first year I taught, with nothing but just handed me a piece of paper and said, do the best you can do. So I relied heavily on the Texas website to start, and then incorporated stuff that I had learned over 28 years of working. My specialty was I'm an accident reconstructionist. So I had that part in the forensic part is my expertise is in accident investigation. But then, like I said, I threw that in, the law enforcement in with that we use stop and approach. We use processing accident scenes. And of course I was in investigations there too before I retired, and did the crime scene and processing crime scenes, presenting evidence or taking evidence and getting it to the lab, and then also preparing court documents in order to present it. And we use that, like Robert and Jessica both do. I use the first part of my class. Our class is maybe a little different theirs because mine's all hands-on. And I have around 50 students. So we're a small high school. So I have around 50 kids. So, most of mine is the first part of class is doing classroom work, and iCEV has been excellent in helping with that. And then the last part is doing the activities, where I incorporate the activities for them.
Awesome. That leads me to my next question. Jessica, if you want to start with this one as well, if the others have anything to add, please do so. How do you get students to engage and complete their activities? Is there an incentive? Are you seeing students are enjoying the activities? How do you do that, Jessica, in your classroom?
Well, I use I said it already about the carrot, that's like that gets them excited. Like they know that's coming when they finish their work. And they don't mind iCEV, but they're ready to do the hands-on, go outside and then they practice. But if I have students that can't, because there's so many, I have so many students, if they are not able to, like I also teach students that are not able to come into my classroom because of behavior, or they have some kind of modification that I have to accommodate for, and they can't come physically to me, like maybe they're hearing impaired or, something like that, and they can't do or don't do well with a large group. I give them lessons that are similar to, so they're getting that hands-on feel, but they're not actually able to go and, put their hands on handcuffs, and they can't do tactical handcuffing. They can't do, takedown techniques. They can't practice and go over the use of force and how to do felony traffic stops. But I've noticed that they kind of feel like they've already, got that edge before we actually do it, because they saw the example in iCEV. I do a video, and I have people that come in the classroom, and I video that through Zoom, and I'll post it on Google Classroom, and then that way they're getting a little piece of everything, even if they're not able to be there in person. It does take extra work for me to have to do the extra recording and stuff, but I kind of viewed it as it's, you know, I'm having to put together all these things to help them learn ultimately how to go into this field if that's what they're going to do. And it also helps eliminate people that maybe they had a bad idea of what policing is about, or maybe they don't really think, you know, forensics or CSI is what they really want to go into, or specifically corrections with me. We need more good correctional officers. So I try to teach them as much as I can in that field through my iCEV and doing the hands-on lessons, and then that helps them kind of eliminate in their mind, I'd like that, I don't like that, and then they don't waste their money in college, you know, going into that field. So I've used a little bit of everything to teach and help them get excited, and then engagement. The hands-on is probably the most engaged they get. They get so excited doing that.
Awesome. Thank you. Robert, Alan, do you want to add anything to that? Robert, I know as we talked before, you said you use a lot of the career connections, so those interviews, if you don't have somebody to bring in. Do you want to speak to that, Robert?
Oh yeah. So what I like to do is try to bring in people, you know, into the classroom that are in the field, because, you know, I'm the teacher, and, you know, I don't have the forensic science field experience. So I'll bring in a crime scene investigator. I will work and bring in an attorney. Somebody who works for the DA office, the coroner, and the crime lab, and they, you know, show them what is it like to be in this field, and they give them a really good perspective of what it takes to be in there. I also, in the program, how I get them to engage is I create badges for them, and I also have a shirt that they have to earn. It's kind of like a career readiness part of my class, where they have to apply for the job, and then they go through an interview. The people that are interviewing are my forensic science 3s. They interview the 1s, and then they get their shirt if they do well in the interview. And we ask them all the normal questions that you would find in any job. And so I try to use the very beginning as hey, what does it take to be a good employee? What does it take to be a good professional? And teach those soft skills. Because I may not see them after year 1. After year 1, they may get weeded out and say, hey, forensic science isn't for me. And they go on to do another CTE program. So that's kind of the very beginning, very similar to what Jessica does, you know, just try to open up the world of this curriculum, this job, and then for them, and make them decide, is it something that they want to pursue? Because I get a lot of kids they tell me, oh, I love CSI on TV. And I'm like, that's really not what this is about, but we'll see. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Robert. Ellen, do you want to add anything?
Okay, I would just not to take up too much time. I use a lot of field trips. They leave me with I drive a bus, so they leave me. I can get a bus at any time, and we go to the correction facility. We go to the fire department of the training facilities right close to the school. So a lot of times I will utilize those people out in the industry to help me teach especially on the fields that I'm not comfortable as much teaching with. So I use a lot of my outside industry and bring in, like you say, attorneys, crime scene investigators, coroners, and stuff like that also, and to get them engaged. And they know if they're not engaged in the class, then the field trips will not happen.
Awesome. Robert, one question for you. What advice would you give to a new user to iCEV of how to use this within their LPS, LCPS course?
Really just start small. Don't bite off more than you can chew, and just try it out a little bit. Either do assessments or just do the videos, and then that's the best starting point. Because if you do too much, you know, you get overwhelmed, or you don't know what you assigned, or just start off small and then see where it goes from there. That's pretty much how I did it.
Awesome, thanks. We have a couple more questions, and then we're going to have the Q&A session, of course. And this is just kind of a roundtable for each of you. Have you incorporated anything different for distance learning, as March hit and distance learning seemed to be the big thing? And any of you can kind of take that of what have you incorporated for distance learning within your class.
Okay, I could, on hours when we stopped at spring break, when we got out spring break, we never went back to school. And thank goodness I had the iCEV program. And I incorporated that, and y'all allowed, iCVE allowed us enough student numbers or student where we could incorporate our students into to allow us them to have access to that online. And that was a big help to mine, because other than that, the only thing we would have had was Zoom meetings. Once the kids found out that what their third term grade was going to be their fourth term grade, it was hard to get them to interact with it. But the iCEV was an excellent way to get them motivated and to get them to log in through the iCEV website and do the assignments.
Awesome. Jessica, do you want to add anything? Or Robert, I saw you unmuted yourself. You can go first.
Sorry. Thanks, Robert. So I feel your pain, Alan. I had the same thing happen as soon as kids figured out that wasn't a grade. Now, I was told, all of us teachers were told this about the grading, and I just kept assigning assignments on Google Classroom. Now, given I didn't go berserk, my original plan was to kind of just keep rolling like normal, but just, rolling through, trying to cover the rest of my standards. And then they were like, whoa, you're assigning too much. That was my administration. Because I include my administration in Google Classroom, so I don't have to keep answering and telling them what I'm doing. They can actually keep up with what I'm doing all the time. And so that's helped. I add them to Classroom, and then I don't have to give up a seat in iCEV that we pay for. I don't have to give that up for an administrator to be in there to see what's going on. That way they already know, because I'm, informing and saying, go to iCEV, do this lesson. And then what I was doing was like pre-recording my instruction, and then I would post my instruction on there to go along with iCEV, the work. And sometimes I would clip in and out of like the videos and show them at the same time. But I already had iCEV in place. I've been using it for 3-4 years now. And my students, they know that I know how it works. I had to figure out the hard way that you've got to click so that students can't see the answers, and you only give them one option on the assessments, because they had me blind. They told me, Ms. Jess, can you please open it up for us to have, one more chance? Well, they already had it, screenshot, and they knew the answers. So they would make 100. I'm like, oh my gosh, hundreds, and now if a student has modifications and they need a second chance, I just secretly, I wait till we're past that lesson, and then I'll open it up so that the students that need that their grade to improve because they need that extra chance, they don't think to go, back in there. Not that they're not bright enough. They're not looking to get away with it. They're just trying to improve their grade. So they try to truly go in and do a better grade, make a better score. But they had me tricked. So I learned that the hard way. You got to make sure you only put one chance in there on their assessments. And I've used it in even as a pre-assessment, like before we've actually taught that lesson, I'll go through the quiz, like one quiz with them, and show them how it works. That's like when I'm introducing them to iCEV, and they've logged in and they're kind of like, whoa, especially my 10th graders. They're like, how do you do iCEV, Zoom, Google Classroom? If it's brand new to them, they're lost. So I've got to really take it step by step. We have to use industry certifications. I know iCEV does industry certifications, but we just can't afford the industry certifications. So I use FEMA, and FEMA has helped. So I incorporate that too.
Yeah, I had something very similar. So our school district is the 5th largest in the nation. And immediately when we went to distance education, it was sent out to all the students 3rd quarter that they don't have to do their assignments. They don't have to do anything. And the minute that happened, I got very little buy-in. I really found out who were the ones that wanted the material, and iCEV, I would tell them exactly what to do. in that particular time, we were getting ready for my forensic threes to publish their crime scenes for the ones to process. So we were 2 weeks away from doing this big project. And I had to get a little creative. I used Google Tour Creator, which you can use a 360 camera, and I would set up a crime scene, put some stuff out, and I would send it off to the kids if they wanted to practice processing a virtual crime scene. I found a museum out in Canada where they actually had an in-depth crime scene that you would click on to find evidence. It was in the woods. I forwarded that to my students, and I made a little worksheet kind of for them to follow along, because it was pretty intense. It was really cool, but without me being there, it was really hard, that particular website to work. So I just had to get kind of creative with the kids that wanted that extra content. My level threes, those kids were just like, I just need to focus on my English, my math, my sciences. And so I didn't really push them too much. I just said, it is what it is, guys. I'm not going to stress you out by, it is what it is. And the forensic ones were very little buy-in. It was horrible. It's devastating.
That is the end of our time. I just want to thank each of y'all for being part of it. Just some housekeeping for all the viewers out there, and please join us for the live Q&A where you can ask each of them questions of what they said today. Also, don't forget to enter the session completion code to receive your points and professional development credit. Again, I want to thank each of y'all for being part of this. I truly enjoyed listening. So thank y'all so much.